When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
You need to be emotionally healthy, because when you are, you will never settle for someone who is not. And you're going to be able to identify if their childhood traumas are healed or not healed.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 393 with guest Riana Milne. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here, partly because today's episode was so incredibly powerful and helpful for me. I can't wait for you to hear this. Riana Milne is a therapist who has been helping men and women of all ages and all sexual orientations for 21 years. So she's helped thousands of people. And one of the reasons I love having people on here who are therapists and other coaches is because I also want people on here whose expertise and wheelhouse is in one that is not mine. And this absolutely is it. As most of you know, I'm divorced. I've had some highly dysfunctional romantic relationships, as a lot of you might relate to who are listening right now. And I am lucky enough to be in a really great and secure marriage. It kind of, like, I say that because I'm kind of like, wow, it blows me away that I just hit the jackpot with this man. So it also hasn't come without a ton of work on both of our parts. And while I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an expert in romantic relationships like Riana is, what I know for sure is that much of the problems and struggles and challenges and baggage that we bring into our romantic relationships stems from our childhood. And in many times, it's childhood trauma, wherever that is on the trauma scale for you. I know that definitely was the case for me. And this is one of the things that she talks about. There's a point where she's doing this like 10 checklist, and I was so busy taking notes. I kind of lost my train of thought. You'll hear it. But I also want you to have access to a free ebook that she has where she goes more in depth about this. So I'm going to talk about that, I don't know, maybe like 2/3 of the way through the show. So listen up for that. And if for any reason you can't find the show notes for this episode, because I know that you're going to want to go and grab the free ebook that she has and check her out, head on over to andreaowen.com/393 and you can find it on that page. All right. So for those of you that don't know Riana, let me tell you a little bit about her. Riana Milne, MA, is a certified global life and love trauma recovery coach, a certified clinical trauma and addictions professional, a certified mindfulness coach, and #1 best-selling author. The host of her podcast called Lessons in Life and Love. She is an educational speaker and a licensed mental health counselor for over 21 years living in Palm Beach County, Florida. She was also a life and dating coach for the docuseries Radical Dating, Finding Lasting Love Over 40, and her client is now happily married. Riana specializes in helping those who have had past childhood or love relationship trauma to heal, transform, and thrive, leading them to create the life they desire and to have the love they deserve. So without further ado, here is Riana. Riana, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Andrea. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here.
Hi. Yay. We're talking about something important and
Yeah.
not exactly a light topic, but not a whole lot of the topics that I have on this podcast are light. And today we're talking about trauma, as everyone heard in the introduction. And I would love for you to start us off by telling us you have like these top 10 traumas that are experienced during childhood that impact us later on in lives, in our relationships, in our career, for those people listening who are parents. And we were chatting before we started recording, and you were alluding to that there's a misconception that some people feel like they don't have these traumas. So can you talk to us about that?
Sure. My research shows that 9 out of 10 people experience at least 1 to 3 of the top 10 traumas. There are more. And I created the childhood trauma checklist in 2012 as a result of someone I loved that was sabotaging his life in every direction. And he said to me, I don't know what's the matter with me. I sabotage everything I love. And me being a psychotherapist, I knew nothing of childhood trauma. And I said, I don't know what it is either, but I'm going to figure it out. And that's what started my journey into the deep research. And it was really healing for me because it was able for me to get into the forgiveness piece and understand what he had. And when I wrote the book, Love Beyond Your Dreams, that went to a #1 bestseller, he's oh my God, put my picture on the front. I'm the poster child of this stuff.
You want credit.
But he was in his 50s and he finally had the answer of what he was doing and why he was doing it. So that's how my clients feel when they finally hear this work. And it's like, oh my gosh, finally I'm getting to the root of the issues versus just taking a pill for anxiety or a pill for depression. And it just numbs you out, fogs you out, and doesn't do anything else. So it's really the root of the issues that occur in your adult life. So it's really important that we look at them. And as I go through them, I want our listeners to understand this is not about being mad at mom or dad at this stage. Like, why did you do this?
Right.
It's not about blame, and it's not about feeling any personal shame or embarrassment either, because keep in mind, you're just an innocent child, a product of your environment. And little child minds just cope the way that they know how. And they're not in full maturity, of course. So they adopt coping behaviors that become normalized over time. And then they come out as an adult and you wonder why your life's not working. This results also comes from my years of working in school systems, working with kids from kindergarten all the way through college, working in a hospital setting in the child and adolescent mental health ward, working in a teen drug and alcohol rehab center, and also working in a rehab center with women who were from the prison system. So all these different populations, different ages, 5 and up, were sharing their stories with me, and these top 10 kept appearing. So that's where my list came from. So we'll get into the top 10, Andrea. So
yeah, I have my pen ready.
Okay, girl, here we go. The first one is if your parents or caretakers had any addiction. Now, there's different addictions as an addiction specialist also. I named 12 of them that could have interfered with a parent-child bond. So they're drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was a chronic cheater and you held that secret. Porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, workaholism, and a recent one I added is addicted to social media, where you're on the machines all the time and the child's just probably on their own machine, just kind of disconnected emotionally. Right. So that's number 1. Number 2 is verbal abuse or trauma of any kind. So that could be witnessing mom and dad fighting and screaming at each other. It could be they yelled at you. It's also as subtle as verbal put downs, like, hon, go change that outfit. You look fat in that. Or, you excel. Like I remember one for me, I excelled in swimming and I got my best time. And my mom goes, well, it's still not as good as so-and-so's time. So it's like you never hear a compliment. Nothing's ever good enough. A lot of critical messages, or even not hearing the words, I love you. Now, I'm a baby boomer, and I was on the beach Sunday, and I was around 4 of my peers, all of the same age. And they're like, yeah, my mom didn't say I love you either. All of us. And my mom said to me once when I asked her, I finally taught her to say the words. I finally heard them at 25 years old after I had a baby. And she said, well, we didn't hear those words. We grew up in the Great Depression. It was all about survival and hard work. Like, why would I say those words to you when they weren't said to me? I said, because your children need to hear them, Mom. They're very important. The research shows childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations. So if you have some, your parents do, and their parents do. I was recently reading something. I'm always keeping up on the studies of trauma. And they said even the Holocaust survivors, their DNA had changed so much that it was passed on to at least 3 generations due to their high cortisol and high anxiety levels of being in that horrendous situation.
Yeah, those studies are fascinating of epigenetics.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. So that's verbal. Number 3 is emotional abuse and neglect. We all basically know what that is, but one of the reports I read even said if you had a latchkey child, in other words, you were working 9 to 5 to support the family as a single mom, let's say, they have to come home from school themselves and let themselves in. Well, in my generation, when I was that single mom, there was no cell phone where they could just quickly, text you, Mom, I'm in, I'm okay. That was not existing. So kids that were latchkey without that correspondence, they were found to be anxious and feel neglected, even though the parent was doing the best they could to support them.
Right.
So that's that one. Okay. The next one is physical abuse, sexual abuse, rape, or molestation. Now, I've talked to some clients where their childhood, they said, I can't see any of these traumas, but when I walked to school, I was bullied every day. So remember, these situations happen both inside and outside of the home, from in utero, if you had a very nervous or abused mother, up to your young 20s. So these could have happened anywhere, anytime. Okay, the next one is abandonment. And there's 2 parts that I describe, fault and no fault abandonment. So a no fault abandonment would be if a parent happened to die early, if the parent went off to serve their country in war, or if the parent traveled a lot to support the family. And I could recognize that one, but not right away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember as a kid saying to my mom, when's dad coming home and where is he? She goes, I don't know where he is. And I just thought that was so weird that you're married. Why don't you know where your husband is? Where's our dad? And I was close to him. So I was always worried if he was okay. So I find in my later life, safety is important, right? So this is how things show up. So, things as innocent as that, but that's how he paid his bills, right? Our bills as a family. Okay. Then there's fault abandonment. That is never being involved in your child's life, or being involved as the couple stays together. If they separate or divorce, then that's often a different story. You don't see the child as much, or there's a lot of promises made and not fulfilled. There's fights around child support and custody and all that drama that kids go through. Or it could even be the parents in the house, but they're not emotionally connected. I hear from a lot of kids I worked with, why do I have to go to visitation to see my dad? He just sits and watches football all weekend. And I'm in my room saying to myself, why do I have to be here? So that emotional disconnect, or they don't attend their sporting events or their arts events, those kinds of things. Okay, so that's abandonment. Number 6 is if you're a child of the foster care system, if you were adopted, or you had to go live in other people's homes, or you chose that, like you didn't like being home. I had a client says, does it count if I chose not to go home and I went to somebody else's house every day after school? I said, yes, that counts, because you were worried what you were going to walk into. So that feeling is all around there, around home and safety. Trauma number 7 is the one that most people can identify with. I call that personal trauma. So that's if you were ever bullied. You might have been an overweight, chubby child, or skinny and gawky, or called names like the nerd. You might have had an asthma problem and had the inhaler, and kids were making fun of you because of that. You weren't part of the cool crowd or the sports teams. You were just teased and bullied because you were different. Sometimes you were super smart and you're teased for that. Or you're the only African-American student in an all-Caucasian school. Or you're coming out as LGBTQ and, you're not accepted for that. You feel different because you feel you look different. You don't fit in the society's definition of what a girl should look like or a guy should look like. So all those feelings for our gay and lesbian clients, there's just so many different ways to identify with personal trauma, right? That's a big one. Okay. Trauma number 8 is sibling trauma. So that could be your sibling bullied you. They were mean to you. It could be they were born with medical issues, which demanded more of mom's and dad's time and attention. Or it could even be you perceive them to be the golden child, the favored one, because they were the athletic star or more handsome or beautiful or the smarter child. And you were always compared, why aren't you as smart as your brother? Things like that. But you always felt that they were favored. Number 9 has 2 parts. Used to only be one, and the one was family trauma. And family trauma looks like if you came from a dangerous neighborhood, you were always struggling financially to get food. Your family might have been military family, moving every 2 to 4 years, like in the USA. That's their protocol, putting the child in a different school each time. It could be a parent was incarcerated. Then on the later list was community trauma, because when I was growing up, there was not a lot of community trauma going on. You could go out and play and run all over. Your parents didn't have a phone to call you. It was just, you go out and play all day and then come home for dinner. That was the norm. Well, today, community trauma, we're all experiencing the COVID pandemic. So when people don't think they have trauma, we all do now. The messages we hear about all this death and dying on TV, imagine what it's doing to our children. They're afraid to see their parents go off to work, afraid they're going to get the virus. They're afraid to play with their friends. They can't go to school. They're masked up, so they're not free to talk or hug their friends. It's very weird. And there's going to be a lot of anxiety around safety and an emotional closeness for these young kids growing up when they're adults. And it's also community trauma is our Mother Nature events, our floods, fires, hurricanes, storms that impact communities at large. It also includes our mass shootings and our school shootings. Like I said, when I was a kid, we were blessed. We did not have a lot of these events, but our young people are constantly going through this and hearing these messages nonstop. And then trauma 10 is mental health issues in your parents. The baby boomer parents didn't go to counseling, so we kind of have to guess. The 2 most difficult for kids to navigate around is bipolar and borderline personality disorder. Borderline, I simply describe as real erratic moods. When they're good, they're great. When they're bad, they're horrid. They can explode and get angry at the littlest thing that nobody else would be upset about. And for a kid, it feels like walking on eggshells all the time. You never know what you're walking into when you go into the house. They're going to be happy today or they're going to be angry today. So those are some of those messages. And then bipolar is manic depression. Depression shows up as extreme fatigue, checking out emotionally, or even anger in depression. And manic phase could be a gambling spree, an eating binge, a spending spree when the family has little money, but mom may be a spender and come home every day with things that you really don't need, making the child anxious all the time. So those are the top 10, Andrea, right there.
Well, that's depressing.
So how many do you have?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me look at the list. I wrote them all down. And so remind us, is this, do you talk about these the most in your book, Love Beyond Your Dreams?
Well, Love was started right after my book, Live Beyond Your Dreams.
Live Beyond Your Dreams. Okay.
Which is about the mindset for success.
Okay.
And then actually in my meditations, when part 4 is, God, what you want me to know? It's like, you must write the book on love. It's going to be a #1 bestseller. And I'm like, oh, I just got done a book. I don't want to write another one. And I go to the beach and all these ideas just flood to me. And I'm like, yeah, this would be a bestseller. I have to write this book, because all this research kept coming up and coming up and coming up. So Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve, that came up to 400 pages. And I said, I got to stop, but I have more research. And then I created a 150-page workbook that my coaching clients have, and that's interactive to work with me. Okay. So not all of this is written in there because it became more and more defined as I went on with the research, but it's a really great, knowledgeable book. And I think I have 350 sources cited in there.
We'll drop that in the show notes for sure. I just could feel people going to Amazon, like, because they didn't get all the notes down. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in Noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Okay, as you heard, because I was writing furiously, Riana has the childhood trauma checklist. And if you didn't write it down, or if you did and you want more information on it, this is fantastic news, because she has a free ebook. When she asked me if I would talk about it, and I was like 100% yes. It's amazing how much research shows about the psychology of past childhood and love experience, how that impacts us as adults when it comes to being successful in dating and sustaining our long-term love relationships. And I'm just really excited that she has this for everyone. So you can take this a step further than just listening to the podcast. So the checklist is simple and fast. It's an easy to use tool that discovers how your past childhood and love experiences may be impacting you today. So if you head on over to the show notes, if you are having trouble with that, just go to AndreaOwen.com/393 and you will see the link to download that. It's called Why 9 out of 10 People Struggle in Life and Love, and How to Have the Love You Deserve. So I can't wait for you to have that as a free gift. And let's get back to the conversation. And I want to just kind of briefly give you a little bit of personal experience, because as I was telling you before we started recording, I selfishly am having people like you on. I hired a trauma specialist therapist at the onset of COVID, which I think a lot of people did, because all of our stuff kind of came to light, and it was like, okay, it's time. And what was interesting for me, and I wonder if this is not that uncommon, is that my father passed away in 2016. And when he did, I felt like the way that I described it is, I said, you know, when you are sweeping up and you realize you haven't swept behind the dresser for a while, and then you do, and then all the dust bunnies come circling up. That's how I felt what happened when my father passed away. And that was in 2016. And it just started this whole cycle. So
there was a lot of things still unhealed for you.
There was still some unfinished business, is the way that I described it. And that was also directly correlated to a very long relationship I had, which ended, and now it's been 15 years, but that also still felt like it was unfinished business. And this particular person was a narcissist. My therapist is highly suspicious he was actually a sociopath based on some of the stories that I told her.
Okay.
And to me, it was normal behavior. But when I would tell my friends stories, like the look on their faces is shock.
So then it sounds like to me, you grew up with a father who had the same type of personality type. It was so normalized for you that he might have had a lot of narcissistic or sociopathic tendencies.
Well, here's the interesting thing, is that my father was very passive. He was an alcoholic, but he wasn't an obvious drunk. So he was very emotionally detached. And he also, because you were talking about abandonment, and it's interesting. And I never would have said, oh, you know, I felt abandoned, because my parents were married until I was 18. And my father and I were very close growing up. I was an only child, but I had older half siblings, and which is another weird dynamic. So I was their only child growing up. And then as soon as I turned around 13 and started to change from a child to more of a teenager, and my body changed, and he basically walked away from our relationship. And there were some, like, my mom made a comment to me. I had these pajamas that I think were a little bit too big for me, and it showed a little bit of side boob, I think, when I was 13. And my mom said to me, just sort of casually, she said, your father asked me to tell you to put some more clothes on. And I will never forget that moment, because I felt so ashamed for my body, and just also like, oh my God, like to cause a problem like that. It was so confusing, and also feeling like I had done something wrong. Like I should have known better than to do that. But like, I was just there with my parents. I was still a little kid in my eyes.
So, I mean, this is an indication that there was childhood trauma still unhealed in your father. Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You know, the fact that he turned alcoholic, passiveness often comes from fear of speaking your feelings. So he might have had a very toxic or abusive father.
Yeah. He grew up Catholic, altar boy. There was abuse that was never talked about. So very, very much so. He was a twin, and his twin brother was very charming, and my dad was quiet. And anyway, so yes, it was passed down, never healed. Also, his mother had electroshock treatment for depression in the 1930s. So yes, all the puzzle pieces sort of came together after he died, and I started to hear these stories and figure it all out. And it all pointed to the reason that my therapist says I have a high tolerance for inappropriate behavior.
Well, I wouldn't say I have a high tolerance for it. What has happened is it became normalized for you, Andrea. That's
exactly.
All. It was all around you, and this was just normal in your household.
And nobody talked about it either. So it wasn't, here's the part that was confusing that I think some people might relate. It wasn't obvious. So, you know, we hear about these egregious, heartbreaking stories from people where there was domestic violence or there was substance abuse, and, you know, and it was just sort of like wreaking havoc everywhere. That wasn't what it looked like in my family. Like I felt like something was wrong, but nobody would talk about it.
Right. Which was the norm back then.
Right. I grew up, I was born in 75. So I'm a Gen Xer, and we still were in the generation of don't talk about it and maybe it'll just go away.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. So when I do get a client, it's very important that I talk to them about their mom and their dad and what they went through, and even their grandparents. So 3 generations is what we kind of look at. And it helps with the healing and the forgiveness part, where a lot of people are mad at their dads for how they behaved. And then the compassion and forgiveness can come in. It's like, well, wow, he suffered too. He obviously had a mother with mental health issues, and he wasn't, if he's passive, that means he was never allowed to talk about his feelings, or he could have been hit or beaten back then, so he just learned, I'm upset, I just clam up. That's how I handle it. Or the internalizers, as teens, they often turn to alcohol or cutting. Kids that want more control in their household, they'll turn to eating disorders very often. Like, eat everything on your plate. This costs a lot of money. And it's like, you yell and scream at me, I'll show you I won't eat anything, and that becomes an internal control over their parents because kids are angry. So there's all these different things. The externalizers tend to get themselves into trouble with the law, or they beat up other kids. Those are the ones that take their anger outward, or, try to suppress it with pot or alcohol. So you start seeing the signs usually in teenagers, sometimes in children. Of course, children can be quiet and depressed and sad and cry. And I've even worked with very young kids saying, I don't want to live anymore. I mean, it is very sad. But listeners, like, if your kids are saying any messages or giving you signs that they're upset, you must get them help right away, because it doesn't just go away. You can't just ignore it. You have to, get them help immediately.
Yeah. Well, tell us, what are some of the sort of telltale signs or destructive and self-sabotaging patterns that you see, whether it's in a relationship or at work, where it might be a clue for someone that there's something deeper that they need to address?
Sure. Let's go into how these show up in love relationships. So if there's jealousy and control, that usually comes from trauma 7 and trauma 2, where trauma 7 was not feeling good enough, not measuring up, feeling different. And the verbal messages you might have heard, like, you're up to no good. I'm not paying for college for you because, I'd be wasting my money. So messages like that will lead to jealousy, where you just don't feel good enough. Also, if you had a lack of trust, like you knew your father was a cheater and you couldn't say anything. And if you're a girl out there dating, you may, have a lack of trust for those men that you're dating when they're not in touch with you all the time. So that's where jealousy comes from. Control, again, you had that volatile household. So you may have tried control as a young person.
Oh, I was heavily codependent.
Yeah, were you?
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah. Poster child.
And then, but some kids will find their accolades and get those messages of ego reinforcement at school when they do well. So this is a lot of the client I get, successful in business, but struggles in love. So they're like killing it at the workplace, but their love relationships consistently tend to be messed up, and they can't figure out why. Well, they found one of their coping mechanisms is, I'll feel love and success and happiness by being a good student. And then they're used to that pattern of excelling, and business brings them happiness. They could also then be prone to workaholism, because that's where they get their ego satisfaction from, right? But they have not fixed the love piece. And so that's very interesting to see. So they will control in the workplace, which can work. But then if they try to control their partners at home, that's when the relationships can fall apart. Lying and manipulation, which is part of the sociopathic behavior, that comes from fear of being hit or screamed at very often. And kids find, wow, if I become a good liar, I get away with it and I'm not going to be hit today. So then lying becomes a norm. If you ever knew anyone that lied about everything, it's like, why'd you have to lie about that? Just lying about everything. That became so normalized for them. So we have to teach that person to live in integrity and speak their feelings without fear. Impulsivity is from that child growing up with things that they weren't allowed to have. So that might be the guy going out and saying, well, I want this sports car. I deserve it. I work hard, and not discussing that big purchase with his wife. or making risky choices that destroy your relationship or hurt your partner, and you don't even think about them. It's like, well, I want this, so I'm going to do it. You know, that impulsivity is one of the top ways that relationships become destroyed. People pleasing is one that a lot of my women do. They can't say no, they overdo for others, and that makes them angry, resentful, burnt out. They used to use this to help, feel love or raise their self-esteem. Let's say there was a girl with an alcoholic mother, miserable in the morning, and the girl would just say, okay, I'm going to get my siblings up, ready, fed, lunch is made, off to the school bus. And then none of them would get yelled at today. Mm-hmm. So she was used to being the mini mom or just pleasing her to death to feel some kind of love. And this might be a woman in a marriage that comes into me and says, Riana, no, my husband and my kids don't love me like I love them. I do everything for them. And the man might say, well, I don't ask her to do those things. She treats me like a child, so we have to reassess the balance in a relationship like that. Now, abandonment issues, this can lead to clinginess, codependency, high anxiety if your partner's gone, love addiction. So love addiction is interesting. The research shows toxic relationships break up, get back together, break up, and get back an average of 7 times. And consciously you say, I know this person's not good for me. So you'll break up for 10 days, 2 weeks, and then slowly the messages start again and the promises are made and you get back together and there's a peaceful period of about 10 days to 2 weeks and then something else happens. And the reason that these keep getting back together is the abandonment feeling that you had as a child. You crave the love so much, even though you know it's toxic. You hang on to what's good in this person and you try to just forget or deal with the rest. Yeah. But then when it happens over and over again, it whittles away your self-esteem, your sense of empowerment, just your joy and laughter and lightness about life just becomes gone. You just feel frazzled. And then toxic behaviors in the body, the results show up as irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, migraines, anxiety, depression. Insomnia. Instead of dealing with the real issues, right? Addiction, a lot of addictions.
Well, you just described my life. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't mean to cut you off. Abandonment from your dad. So this would be common then that,
Well, and I was also a pretty severe love addict for a while in my former relationship. It was chronic cheating on both of our ends. But that cycle that you described made my stomach hurt a little bit. It's just, and I used to say I would rather be in this relationship than no relationship at all. Like I knew how bad it was.
You were so starving for the love feelings.
Yeah. And I was terrified to be alone because I was conscious enough to realize that once I was alone, I was going to have to deal with all my issues. And I didn't want to, but he made the decision for me. He had an affair with our neighbor and got her pregnant. And so he set me free. He did. Yeah. It was torturous. It was awful, but it was what I needed. I do think the universe sort of intervened. And I want to shift gears and because I think so many people are nodding their heads and seeing themselves in what you're describing.
Yeah. That's what we would call love trauma, Andrea. When you experience a cheating, something like that, and it's that shock to the body, that lack of safety, that lack of trust, that lack of, wanting love so much and giving this man so many chances that he just, again, threw that away. So that is a type of trauma, which we call love trauma.
For me personally, I felt like I finally got to a point in my life where I knew that it was living in my body and that I could not just talk my way through it anymore and tell the story. And I got really good at compartmentalizing the pain. Right. And the way I described it to people, I said, I feel like there's a loop that needs to be closed. And this was before I knew about the stress cycle and closing that loop and trauma that lives inside your body. And, and that's the reason that I shifted from talk therapy into more somatic modalities and healing. So can you tell us how you I mean, you can take any one of the many examples that you gave of your clients and the trauma that they bring to you in the clinical setting. How do you work with someone and kind of I know it's maybe hard to put your finger on, but like, what is a typical timeline and what does that look like?
Sure. Well, I'm a certified clinical trauma professional, which is CCTP. And all my studies in trauma say it takes about 6 months to get trauma out of the brain and the body. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because it stays stored in there. And everyone that comes to me, I describe it as a different puzzle. It depends on the traumas that they experience first. Second, the level and degree of severity of the trauma. And third, how are they showing up in life, love, or business? Okay.
It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea. You know when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone, a father, daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
So I also worked a lot with entertainers. I was a model and talent agent for 10 years. So, that could show up as imposter syndromes or perfectionism if they are, an actress and they always have to be perfect and look perfect. And if they're not, their audience beats them up. So it really depends who is in front of me, right? And what are we healing? That's the first thing. So it's a very personalized program that I do. And what second are their goals and dreams for their life and their future? And that's the second part. And if they're single or a couple. So if they're single, we have to heal the trauma first, teach them the mindset for success, to raise their self-esteem, their confidence, get their goals well defined and start living the life that they really desire. And then we get them out to date and they learn what is emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious love. Evolved means being your highest and your best self. So I always say, be what you want to attract. So I have to make my singles feel like they're the whole package amazing about their life and themselves. Then they go out and date. Too many damaged people are out there dating, hoping someone will fix them. And that's why they're not having success in dating. As soon as they have this mindset and this feeling about themselves, they have so many suitors, it's kind of ridiculous. We get to choose who we'd like to be with. Okay. And we can easily walk away and say, very nice person, but not for me. And then second, if I have a couple, I have to do partner A's childhood trauma, partner B, and then the third entity is the relationship. Right. How is it showing up? So once I get each one's traumas defined and understood within the self, each one of them, then they start talking about it. And they start understanding that when they show up, for example, a man might have been criticized at work from his male boss. And he grew up with a father that all he did was criticize him. So he gets emotionally triggered. He feels that anxiety in his body going up, the cortisol going up. He comes through the door in a bad mood and he starts attacking the wife. Now she takes it personally. Oh my God, why is he so mean to me? Blah, 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 blah. Well, with a new understanding, he could walk through the door and say, babe, I need an hour to decompress. My boss yelled at me today. I'll be glad to discuss it, but I don't want to put this energy on you. She understands what his father was like. And now they can have a conversation about, are those messages true or not? Or were you just triggered? Right. Yeah. And then what can we do to fix the problem? Being proactive, not reactive. So what I work with is, mindset's a very important piece of this. Which I call the mindset for success, which is written in the Live Beyond Your Dreams book. So it's a 2-part healing process. You see, it's mind, body, and spirit. Spirituality is a big part of this, a faith that you can do what you dream to do, a belief system that we put into place that, the healing can happen with love and forgiveness. And forgiveness is one of the highest spiritual concepts you can do. You see, so it's analyzing the trauma, doing the mindset work, and then doing either the dating skills or the couple relationship skills.
Okay, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
And I love the example that you gave of the couple with the man coming home and either taking his bad day out on his wife or not taking his bad day out on his wife. So can you name 5 things that are in an emotionally healthy, I love that you call it an emotionally healthy, evolved, and consciously aware relationship?
Yeah. So let me go into consciously aware. Most people, actually, studies show 8 out of 10 people have 8 out of 10 negative thoughts, fear-based thoughts. That, yeah. And they don't consciously think about what they say, they write, they do, they text, they just do it. And they don't stop and think. And I have this hand, when you put a hand up like stop, this questioning that my people do. 1, is this good for me, the woman or the man? 2, is it good for my partner? 3, is it good for my children or my extended family? 4, is this decision is it good for me, my reputation or in the job? And 5, if in doubt, go without. That's one of my little sayings. Don't do it. Think a little bit longer. So being consciously aware in the spiritual world, is it good for you and is it good for all? Right? That's a universal message. Is it for the good of all? If it's not, you don't do it. So we learn to go from unconscious behavior, which most people do, to full conscious awareness 24/7. And it's not grueling. You learn to do this and you wish everybody did because it'd be a much kinder and gentler world. But the full conscious awareness is what you're going for in the relationship. That's what you're looking for. For my couples, I say to them, it's you and me against the world. So you have to put your partner first. Many people here in the U.S. put the kids first, all their sports, all their activities, running them here, running them there. They're too tired to have date night. They barely spend any time with each other. It's just family routines. That's it. By the time the kids are out of the house, they divorce. That's a typical USA marriage. Okay. So that's the huge mistake. They don't keep dating their partner. They don't make their partner feel special in any way. That's a problem. I talk a lot about balanced triangles in my programs, but one of them is you, me, and us. So the you time is your work time. Maybe you're working out, you're reading, your meditation. That's the time you spend with yourself. And we have to make sure that's time that's well used, right? Well balanced. And same with your partner. But then that big line to make it an equal triangle, your us time, also has to be quality time. So we really define that. Like, what are you doing to have a joyful life? Are you taking couples vacation? Are you taking day trips? Are you, what is it that you're doing? So we define that. For my singles, I say, again, be what you want to attract. You need to be emotionally healthy, because when you are, you will never settle for someone who is not. And you're going to be able to identify if their childhood traumas are healed or not healed. Quite simply, I have 24 questions that my singles ask on date 1 or date 2 to really get to the bottom of who these people are that are in front of them. And you'll be clearly able to see it before you get emotionally or intimately involved. So we take our times and we really get to know who that person is. And then also for the singles, are your top 5 to 6 requirements being met with that person before you get involved? Can you trust them? Are they addiction free? Are they financially secure? For my younger people, like 26 to 36, who definitely want marriage and kids, one of the first questions are, if it's a woman and she's asking her male date, are you a man that sees that you want marriage and kids in your future life? If he said, well, yeah, I'll probably get married. And if she wants kids, I guess so. That's a no.
Oh, no.
That's a no.
Yeah.
But I found that many of my research reports showed that happiest and longest lasting couples are spiritually based. And they practice their faith together. And I don't mean religion. I mean spiritually evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love all of this so much. I want to have you on like 6 more times, but
sure. I'll come back.
Oh God, that would be fantastic. Cause I have a feeling what's going to happen is people are going to email and want to know more about certain specific things. And I didn't even get to all the questions I had for you. And I just want to tag on to what you just said. At 45, I'm almost 46. With what I know now in relationships, I would be dating very differently than when I was 25 and 26. Good. I'm just going to add one more thing, and it's pretty much along the same lines of what you were saying, is that I would want to know from someone I was dating is, are you willing, I don't expect anybody to be perfect, but are you willing to work on your own stuff? In other words, would you be willing to go to therapy alone and with me? And I would also like more of an interview question, like, tell me about the last time you took responsibility for something in a relationship where you realized you might have been in the wrong.
Mm-hmm. I would not throw the word therapy. Therapy and coaching.
Is that too scary?
Therapy and coaching are 2 really different models. Now, I've been a psychotherapist for 21 years, so I'm both, right?
Yeah.
And I never did the typical psychotherapy model, but most of them they make you talk and they sit there and they take notes and they keep asking, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
I barely asked that question. I was always more of the coach, solution focused, motivational, inspirational, but coaching is very educational.
Right.
And a lot of people really are looking for the education, the solutions. Like it's so annoying when you don't know.
Right.
And that's when my clients come to me. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I've been doing wrong. I've read 100 self-help books, relationship books, and I keep getting toxic people. I don't know what I don't know. So that is when they really want solutions, education, research-based solutions that work. Right. And that's what I offer through coaching globally. As a psychotherapist, I'm limited to working in my state, so I don't even do it anymore. I'm only globally coaching. But it's a very different model. And psychotherapy, you have to give people a diagnosis like they're sick. My clients aren't sick. They're going through a hard time. And I don't like to code anybody, right? So I get it when some people are turned off to the word therapy. And they would, but they may be more prone to life coaching, right? Yes. Okay. So,
or a personal development workshop. How's that?
Personal development. Yes, definitely. It's so different. And so usually you walk away just feeling so high and so happy, right? And that's how I like my clients to be.
Yeah.
They are like, Really, really research, listeners, the coach that you choose to work with. Make sure they're knowledgeable and well-trained. But it can really change your life. And the skills you learn, you will use forever.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it, so.
That's the goal. We don't want our clients to stay with us forever and ever. Like we kind of do just because we like working with them so much, but the goal is for them to have tools and strategies to use. I know we're going to have a lot of links in the show notes for people to grab your books and your website, but is there anywhere in particular you would love for people to go to learn more about you?
Yeah. The best place to start is my website. So it's my name, rianamilne.com, RianaMilne.com. And on there, you can get the first 60 pages of both my books, Live and Love Beyond Your Dreams, under books. There are 4 free love tests that are very insightful for couples and singles under quizzes. And on the homepage, there is a free ebook, Why 9 out of 10 People Struggle in Life and Love. And that really goes into the childhood trauma piece very deeply. It's like 32 pages. And the childhood trauma checklist is in there as well. And then my podcast, Lessons in Life and Love with Coach Riana Milne, is all over every podcast app. And my YouTube channel has the podcast plus videos. So I think there's like 240 things on my channel now. And my Facebook is Coach Riana Milne. That's where I put all my announcements, where I'm speaking, my summits, my podcast will be posted there, including Andrea's great podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I have just so enjoyed this conversation. It's so important for people to just understand many times the root of the problem. And I would love to have you on again to continue the conversation. And thank you, listeners, for being here. I value your time so much. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye, everyone. Hi there. Swinging back by to say one more thing. You know how I'm always giving advice over here on the show and on social media. And a couple of those things is that I'm always telling you to ask for what you want, be clear about it, and also ask for help. So I am taking a dose of my own medicine, and I'm going to do that right now. It would be the absolute best and mean the world to me if you reviewed and subscribed to this show, Make Some Noise Podcast, on whatever podcast platform of your choice. And even more importantly, it would matter so much if you shared this show. Sharing the show is one of the few ways the podcast can grow, and that also gives more women an opportunity to make some noise in their lives. You can do that by taking a screenshot when you're listening on your phone and sharing it in your Instagram or Facebook stories. If you're on Instagram, you can tag me at Hey Andrea Owen, and I try my best to always re-share those and give you a quick thank you DM. And also you can tell your friends and family about it. Tell them what you learned. Tell them a really awesome guest that you found on the show that you started following. Whatever it is, I appreciate so much you sharing about this show.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.